I wasn't looking for anything. Honestly, I just needed to get away. Work had chewed me up and spit me out over the past year, and when my friend canceled our long-planned Mexico trip last minute, I decided to go solo. 3 days of quiet, margaritas and sunburn seemed better than another weekend of pacing my cramped apartment in Austin, replaying everything I hated about my life. That's how I ended up standing on a beach in Playa del Carmen at sunset, feeling a little ridiculous in my 2 new swim trunks, clutching a watered-down drink, pretending I wasn't absolutely, pathetically alone. I watched the sun sink low, smearing the sky with burnt orange and gold. Everyone around me seemed paired off, lovers taking selfies, honeymooners tangled up in hammocks, families shouting over beach volleyball games, and then I noticed him. He was leaning against one of the tiki bar posts, a beer in hand, sunglasses pushed up into his messy dark hair, a book tucked under his arm, tall, athletic in a casual way, wearing a wrinkled linen shirt and board shorts, like he hadn't even tried but still looked like he belonged in a magazine ad for island vacations. His skin was sun-kissed, the kind of tan that only came from weeks, not days, in the sun. But what got me, what made my stomach jolt and my mouth go a little dry, was the way he was looking at me, direct, steady, almost amused, like he knew exactly how out of place I felt, and he wasn't judging me for it. He caught me staring and, instead of looking away, he raised his beer slightly in a lazy salute, like he was saying, "Yeah, I see you. It's cool." I almost laughed out loud at myself. Jesus, I hadn't even spoken to anyone yet, and I was already imagining fantasy romances. Get a grip, Tyler. Still, I couldn't help the flicker of interest that curled low in my gut. I hadn't been on a real date in over a year, not since my last disaster of a relationship ended in a pile of passive-aggressive texts and Venmo requests. Maybe it was just the vacation vibe getting to me. Maybe it was the tequila. Or maybe, just maybe, it was the fact that for the first time in a long time, someone interesting was looking at me like I was interesting too. I sipped my sad drink and glanced his way again. This time, he pushed off the post and started walking toward me. Casual, unhurried, like he had all the time in the world. My heart thudded stupidly hard. I looked down at my drink, as if it could rescue me from the sudden bolt of panic. Was he really coming over? Should I say something first? What was I supposed to? "Hey," he said, his voice smooth, easy, with just a hint of a drawl that hinted at the South, but didn't hammer you over the head with it. "You here alone?" I looked up into warm brown eyes, flecked with something lighter, almost golden where the sun caught them. "Yeah," I said, my voice coming out rougher than I intended. I cleared my throat and tried again. "Friend bailed. Thought I'd make the best of it." He smiled, easy and genuine, like I'd just said something funny without meaning to. "Same here," he said. "Supposed to meet my cousin, but he got stuck in Houston. Flight's all screwed up." He stuck out his hand. "I'm Matt." "Tyler," I said, shaking his hand. His grip was firm, but not in the alpha bro way that screamed insecurity. Just solid, present. We stood there for a beat too long, our hands lingering. It was him who finally let go, flashing me another one of those crooked smiles that made something twist pleasantly in my stomach. "Mind if I hang out?" he asked, tipping his beer toward the sand. Not really in the mood to third wheel a bunch of honeymooners. "Yeah," I said, a little too fast. "I mean, yeah, stay, please." Matt chuckled low in his throat, like he was used to making people trip over their words. He dropped onto the sand beside me, close enough that I could feel the heat coming off his body, even with the soft evening breeze. For a few minutes, we just watched the sunset, sipping our drinks, the conversation easy and scattered. Where we were from, he was from Nashville. What we did for work, he was in real estate development. What brought us here, escape mostly. It should have been awkward, but it wasn't. Matt had this way of making you feel like you'd known him for years, like the silences weren't something you had to fill. When the last sliver of sun dipped below the horizon, he turned to me, one eyebrow quirked. "Ever been night swimming?" he asked. I blinked. No." His smile widened, mischievous. "First time for everything." Before I could answer, he was already tugging his shirt over his head and tossing it onto the sand. And just like that, I realized two things at once. One, Matt had the kind of body you only got from actual outdoor work, not gym selfies. Broad shoulders, strong arms, a faint dusting of hair across his chest. 2. I was absolutely, helplessly screwed. For a second, I just stared like a total idiot. Matt stood there grinning, his swim trunks riding low on his hips, his bare chest catching the last of the light. There was something so effortlessly confident about him, like he didn't have to try, didn't care if anyone stared, didn't even notice. And meanwhile, I was fighting every instinct in my body not to gawk. "Come on," he said, tossing his sunglasses down onto his crumpled shirt. "Water's warm." I opened my mouth to protest. No towel, no backup clothes. What about my drink? But before I could make a sound, Matt sprinted straight into the waves. He dove under, with barely a splash, disappearing into the darkening water. For a second, I stood there like an idiot, clutching my half-empty cup. Then I heard his laugh echo across the beach. "Tyler," he called, his voice teasing, "don't make me come drag you in." I shook my head, half laughing at myself, and set my drink carefully in the sand. What the hell? When was the last time I'd done something stupid and spontaneous? I peeled off my shirt and jogged toward the surf. The water hit my calves warm and foamy, and I waded in deeper, up to my thighs, until the waves pulled at me harder than I expected. It wasn't cold at all, just a soft, welcoming coolness after the heat of the day. Matt surfaced a few feet away, slicking his hair back with one hand. His face was split in a huge grin. "See? Not so bad, right?" "Not bad," I admitted, laughing as a small wave splashed against my chest. I took a few steps closer, letting the water buoy me up until I was floating alongside him. The ocean stretched out forever, dark and endless under the rising stars. It felt like we were the only two people left in the world. We floated there for a while, not saying much, just letting the current move us gently. Every so often, our legs would brush underwater, a casual touch that somehow felt a little less casual every time it happened. I caught him watching me once or twice, his eyes gleaming in the moonlight. Not in a creepy way, more like curious, interested. I felt my pulse pick up. "So," Matt said finally, his voice low and almost drowned out by the water lapping against us. "You always this serious?" I blinked. "Serious?" He nodded, kicking lazily to keep himself afloat. "You've got that look, like you're thinking 5 steps ahead, even on vacation." I let out a breath. "Bad habit, I guess. Comes with the job." He tilted his head, studying me in that way that made my skin tingle. "What is it you do again?" "Marketing," I said. "Mainly tech stuff. Lots of pretending to be excited about new features nobody actually wants." Matt chuckled, a deep, genuine sound. "Sounds brutal." "It can be," I admitted. "You?" He shrugged, and the movement made the water ripple around us. "Real estate. Buying, flipping, developing, whatever keeps the lights on. And yet you're here alone," I said, raising an eyebrow. "Big shot real estate guy. All by himself." He smirked. "Maybe I like the quiet too." There was a pause, a long, loaded beat, and I swear I felt the whole world narrow down to just the space between us. Matt floated closer, just a few feet away now. "So," he said again, softer this time, "you always let strangers drag you into the ocean after dark?" I grinned, feeling bold all of a sudden. "Only the hot ones." Matt barked a laugh, startled but clearly pleased. He drifted closer still, and this time, when our knees bumped underwater, he didn't pull away. Neither did I. The current shifted, nudging us even closer until our legs tangled briefly and his hand brushed against mine under the surface. Deliberate this time, unmistakable. I looked up at him, heart hammering, every nerve ending in my body on high alert. Matt was close enough now that I could see the tiny freckles dusted across the bridge of his nose, the faint stubble along his jawline. He leaned in just a little, just enough that I could feel his breath mix with mine. "Tyler," he said, voice low and a little rough. "I'm not really great at subtle." "Good," I breathed. "I'm not great at waiting." And then he kissed me. It wasn't soft, it wasn't tentative. It was firm, sure, a little salty from the seawater, a little messy, like he didn't care if it was perfect. His hand came up to cradle the back of my neck, pulling me closer, and I let him, every part of me surrendering to the warm, dizzy pull of him. The world tilted around us, the stars, the waves, the whole damn beach, and for the first time in longer than I could remember, I didn't care about anything but right here, right now. Matt pulled back just enough to rest his forehead against mine, his chest heaving a little from the exertion, or maybe from something else. "You okay with this?" he asked, voice husky, uncertain for the first time. I nodded, grinning like an idiot. More than okay. He kissed me again, slower this time, deeper, the kind of kiss that made everything else fade away. Somewhere, distantly, I registered that we were still half floating in the ocean, getting tossed gently by the waves. But I didn't care. Not when Matt was kissing me like he didn't want to stop. Not when I was kissing him back like I'd been waiting my whole damn life for this. Eventually the kiss broke, but neither of us moved away. We just stayed there, floating lazily in the warm water, arms brushing, legs occasionally tangling, sharing small smiles like a secret we weren't ready to give back to the world yet. "I guess this isn't your average solo vacation," I said after a while, my voice low. Matt chuckled, a deep rumble I felt more than heard. Nope, definitely upgraded the itinerary. The sky had gone fully dark now, the stars sharp against the endless black. The beach behind us looked quieter, emptier. A few tiki lights still burning low near the bar. The music had faded into something softer, slower. Matt nodded toward the shore. "You want to get out of here? Dry off a little?" "Yeah," I said, not even hesitating. We swam back in, the warm surf pulling at our bodies until we stumbled into the shallows. Matt was ahead of me, water cascading off his body in the moonlight, and for a second I just stood there, watching him, stomach flipping stupidly at how easy it was to want him. He glanced back over his shoulder, catching me looking, and smirked like he liked that I couldn't hide it. I sloshed up out of the water, grabbing my crumpled shirt and drink from where I'd abandoned them in the sand. Matt did the same, tossing his shirt over one shoulder. For a moment, we just stood there, grinning like idiots, not quite knowing what to do next. Then Matt tilted his head toward the line of cabanas that lined the far edge of the beach. Private little covered lounges meant for napping or day drinking in the shade. "Come on," he said. "Nobody's gonna kick us out." We wandered toward the nearest one, our feet sinking into the cool, damp sand. Inside the cabana was a wide cushioned bed draped with gauzy white curtains that fluttered in the breeze. It looked almost too perfect, like a movie set version of vacation hookup fantasy. Matt threw himself down onto the cushions, arms behind his head, looking up at me with that same lazy, challenging grin. "You coming or what?" I laughed and dropped onto the bed next to him, close enough that our shoulders brushed. For a while, we just laid there, catching our breath, feeling the ocean breeze dry the salt water from our skin. I turned my head and caught him studying me again, his expression softer this time, more curious than cocky. "You know," he said quietly, "I didn't really expect to meet anyone down here." "Me either," I said. He reached out and brushed a wet strand of hair off my forehead, the touch feather light, but enough to make my heart skip. "Glad I did, though," he added, voice dropping a notch. "Yeah," I said, not even trying to hide the way I looked at him now. "Me too." He leaned in then, slower than before, giving me a chance to pull away if I wanted to. I didn't. Our lips met again, and this time, the kiss was different. Slower, deeper, the kind that felt like it could spin out forever if we let it. Matt shifted closer, one hand finding the side of my face, thumb brushing lightly over my cheekbone. I shivered, but it wasn't from the ocean breeze. It was him. All him. The heat of his body next to mine, the steady pressure of his mouth on mine, the way his fingers slid into my hair like he couldn't get enough of touching me. I kissed him back just as hungrily, threading my fingers into the hem of his damp shirt, feeling the solid warmth of him under my hands. He groaned softly into my mouth, a low sound that went straight to my core. We kissed like that for what felt like hours, slow and greedy, like we were both trying to make up for every second we hadn't spent like this before. Eventually, Matt pulled back just enough to rest his forehead against mine, both of us breathing hard. "You good?" he asked, voice rough. "Very good," I said, and he laughed, that low, easy sound that made my chest ache a little. He dropped back onto the cushions, pulling me down with him until we were sprawled side by side, legs tangled, the ocean breeze cooling our overheated skin. For a long time, we didn't talk. We just laid there, staring up at the stars, feeling the way our bodies fit together without even trying. I should have been overthinking it. Should have been wondering what this meant, where it was going, if it was just a vacation thing or something else. But for once, I didn't. For once, I just let myself be here, with him, in this perfect, impossible moment. After a while, Matt's hand found mine, our fingers lacing together easily, naturally, like they were always supposed to fit that way. And under the endless Mexican sky, with the sound of the waves and the taste of salt still on my lips, I realized something. Maybe I hadn't just needed to escape my life. Maybe I'd needed to find something, or someone, and maybe, just maybe, I already had. I woke up to the sound of the waves and the faint scent of sunscreen and ocean salt still clinging to my skin. For a moment, I wasn't sure where I was. Then I felt the warmth against my side, the weight of a hand lazily draped across my stomach, and remembered everything. Matt, the beach, the kisses, the way he had pulled me closer without even thinking about it, as if holding me was the most natural thing in the world. I cracked one eye open. Matt was still out cold beside me, his chest rising and falling steadily. His hair was sticking up at crazy angles, and there was a faint crease from the pillow on his cheek. It should have been funny. Instead, it made something tighten sweetly in my chest. Careful not to wake him, I shifted a little, just enough to watch him without feeling like a creep. In the pale morning light, he looked younger somehow, less cocky, more vulnerable. I didn't know what this was. Didn't know what it meant. All I knew was that I didn't want to move. Unfortunately, the rest of the beach was waking up. Voices carried across the sand, families heading to breakfast, couples laughing, someone blasting early morning reggaeton from a Bluetooth speaker. Matt stirred, mumbling something under his breath. I smiled and brushed a strand of hair off his forehead. He blinked awake, squinting at me for a moment like he was trying to place me. Then a slow, lazy grin spread across his face. "Morning," he rasped. "Morning," I said, my voice stupidly soft. He stretched, arching his back and making a satisfied sound that honestly should have been illegal to hear before coffee. "You sleep okay?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, realizing it was true. "Best sleep I've had in months." Matt laughed and sat up, scrubbing a hand through his hair. "We probably looked ridiculous," he said, nodding toward the cabana. "Passed out like a couple of drunk tourists." "Could have been worse," I said. "Could have woken up with sunburns on our asses." He grinned, flashing me a look that made my stomach flip. "Next time, we plan better. Next time." The words lodged somewhere in my chest. I wanted there to be a next time. God, I wanted a lot more than that. Matt stood, offering me a hand up, and I took it without thinking. His grip was warm and strong, and he didn't let go even after I was standing. "You hungry?" he asked. "Starving," I admitted, suddenly realizing how empty my stomach was. "Good," he said, tugging me toward the resort. "I know a spot." We grabbed our stuff and wandered barefoot up the beach, our hands brushing occasionally, but not quite holding again. Still, the pull between us was there, undeniable, steady, like a current just under the surface. Matt led us to a little open-air cafe tucked between two buildings, shaded by palm trees and full of the smell of coffee and fresh bread. We slid into a booth, and before I could even think about what to order, Matt was waving the waitress over. "2 coffees, 2 breakfast burritos," he said without looking at the menu. Then he grinned at me. Trust me, I did. God help me, I really did. Over breakfast, the conversation flowed easy and light. We talked about stupid childhood injuries, our worst first dates, the TV shows we were embarrassed to admit we loved. Matt made me laugh so hard at one point that I nearly snorted coffee out my nose. It was stupid. It was perfect. At some point, he reached across the table and brushed a crumb off my lip without even thinking about it, and it hit me hard. how rare this was. Not just the flirting, not just the heat, the comfort. The way I didn't feel like I had to perform or impress or apologize for anything. Matt liked me, and I liked him. Simple as that. When we finally stood up to leave, he hesitated for a second, then reached out and linked our pinkies together. Just for a moment, before letting go. It was dumb, childish, sweet, and it made my chest ache with something that felt suspiciously like hope. "Come on," he said, slinging an arm around my shoulders casually as we stepped back into the sun. "Day's just getting started." I smiled, leaning into him slightly. "Lead the way." We spent the whole day together. It wasn't anything fancy. No excursions, no sightseeing tours, no drunken parties like the groups of college kids around us. It was just the two of us, wandering the beach, ducking into little shops, grabbing drinks from street vendors, laughing over stupid inside jokes that somehow already felt like old memories. Matt was the kind of guy who made everything feel easy. No awkward silences, no forced conversations, just this steady golden current pulling us along together. We ended up renting a couple of bikes and riding down a long coastal trail. The breeze was salty and warm, whipping through my hair as we pedaled side by side, sometimes racing, sometimes just coasting in comfortable silence. At one point, Matt called out, "Race you to the end." I barely had time to shout, "You're on!" before he took off laughing, his legs pumping like he was 12 years old again. I chased him, shouting and laughing like an idiot. By the time I caught up, winded, sweaty, grinning like a fool, he was waiting at the edge of a rocky cliff that overlooked a stretch of untouched beach. The view was ridiculous, perfect, but all I could look at was him. He was standing there with the sun setting behind him, his shirt clinging to his chest from the ride, his hair messy from the wind, a smug smile tugging at his mouth. He turned and caught me staring. Instead of teasing me like I half expected, his smile softened. Without a word, he reached for my hand. I let him take it. Our fingers tangled together easily, naturally, like they were always supposed to. We stood there in silence for a long moment, just watching the sun sink into the ocean, the sky exploding into colors so vivid they didn't seem real. I felt him squeeze my hand once, gently, like he knew exactly what I was feeling without me having to say a word. When the sun disappeared completely and the first stars started blinking to life overhead, Matt finally spoke. "You're dangerous, you know that?" I blinked at him, startled. "Me?" He nodded, still not letting go of my hand. "You make it real easy to forget there's a flight back to real life waiting for me." My throat tightened. I didn't know what to say, because I was feeling the exact same thing, and it scared the hell out of me. Instead of answering, I leaned in and kissed him. It was softer this time, slower, the kind of kiss that says, "I see you, I'm not going anywhere." He kissed me back like he believed it. When we finally pulled apart, the stars were fully out, and the world felt quieter, smaller, like it had narrowed down to just us. Matt pressed his forehead against mine and whispered, "Come back with me tonight." My heart tripped over itself. I nodded without even pretending to think about it. We didn't rush. We took our time riding back, stopping for more beers, more kisses, more moments that felt too good to be real. When we finally made it back to the resort, the world had gone soft and drowsy around us. The pathways were lit with little lanterns, and the only sounds were the low hum of music from the bar and the distant crash of waves. Matt led me through the quiet hallways to his room, a corner suite he said he'd been upgraded to at check-in. He unlocked the door, pushed it open, and held it for me. It was simple inside, a big bed, a little balcony, white sheets that smelled like salt and sun. As soon as the door clicked shut behind us, the energy shifted. Matt leaned back against the door, watching me with this expression that was half smile, half something much hungrier. For a second, neither of us moved. We just stared at each other, the air between us practically vibrating. And then, all at once, we moved. I crossed the room in 2 strides and he met me halfway, grabbing fistfuls of my shirt and pulling me in. The kiss was rougher this time, desperate, full of the kind of heat that had been simmering between us all day. Hands everywhere, on backs, on hips, threading through hair, pulling each other closer until there wasn't a scrap of space left between us. Matt's hands found the hem of my shirt and yanked it over my head. He tossed it aside without even looking where it landed. I did the same to him. We stumbled backward toward the bed, still kissing, still laughing breathlessly against each other's mouths. When we finally collapsed onto the mattress, it wasn't awkward or rushed. It was slow, hungry, careful, and not careful all at once. Matt's hands roamed my skin like he was memorizing it. Like he didn't want to miss a single inch. It was something bigger, something terrifying and exhilarating and real. And I knew, right then in the dark, with his body pressed against mine and his breath hot against my ear, that nothing was ever going to be the same again. Not for me, not for him, not for us. I don't know how long we stayed like that, wrapped up in each other, half asleep, the room heavy with the smell of salt water and skin, and something sweeter I couldn't quite name. At some point, Matt shifted, pulling the sheet up over us and tucking me closer to his chest like he didn't even realize he was doing it. I laid there listening to his breathing even out, feeling the slow, steady beat of his heart against my back, trying to memorize every second. Because I knew, sooner or later, we'd have to talk about it, about what came next, about what this even was. In the morning, I woke to soft gray light filtering through the curtains, and the weight of Matt's arms still draped over my waist. For a moment, I stayed still, pretending we were just two guys without jobs or return flights or real lives waiting for them outside this perfect bubble. But eventually, I shifted, and Matt stirred awake. He made a sleepy, grumbling noise and tightened his grip on me like he wasn't ready to let go. "Morning," I murmured. He just hummed and buried his face against the back of my neck. We stayed like that a little longer before reality finally crept in. Matt sat up slowly, running a hand through his messy hair. He looked at me, really looked, and for the first time since we met, there was no cocky grin, no playful teasing. Just him, raw and a little uncertain. He cleared his throat. "I wasn't planning on this." "Me either," I said quietly. He blew out a breath and laughed under it, a shaky sound. "Supposed to be a chill solo trip. Maybe hook up if I was lucky. Not..." He gestured between us, helpless. "Not this." I nodded. Because, God, I got it. I hadn't planned on feeling this either. Hadn't planned on wanting something real. Wanting him. Matt scrubbed a hand over his face, then looked at me again, eyes steady now. "So, what do we do?" he asked. It wasn't flippant. It wasn't casual. He meant it. I sat up too, pulling the sheet around my waist, trying to find the right words. "I don't know," I admitted. "But I don't want this to just be a vacation thing." His mouth twitched like he was fighting a smile. "You don't?" I shook my head, heart pounding harder than it had all night. "I don't want to just go home and pretend this didn't happen." Matt leaned back against the headboard, one arm draped casually across the pillows. But there was nothing casual about the way he was watching me. "Me neither," he said, voice low. Silence stretched between us, thick but not uncomfortable. Finally, he broke it. "I'm in Nashville," he said. "Got my own place, my own schedule. He hesitated. "I could fly out, come see you." My chest tightened. "I could fly out to you too," I said quickly, before he could think I wasn't serious. He smiled then, slow and real. "Sounds like a lot of flights." "Sounds like it's worth it," I said, and it was true. It was so true. Matt reached out, lacing his fingers through mine. "Yeah," he said, squeezing my hand. "I think it is." We spent the rest of the morning tangled up in each other. Not in a rush, not desperate. Just there, present, real. We made plans. Tentative ones, dates, flights, weekends we could steal from real life. And when it was finally time to leave, when I was standing at the curb with my backpack slung over my shoulder and Matt was heading for a different terminal, he kissed me like he meant it. Like it wasn't goodbye. Just see you soon. I watched him walk away, my chest feeling too full for words, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel lost. I felt found, because somehow, against all odds, in the middle of a trip I almost didn't take, I found exactly what I didn't even know I was looking for. And his name was Matt.